I've seen homeowners spend 10, 20, 30 grand on solar and battery systems and it never worked the way they thought it would. Not because batteries and solar don't work, but because they didn't consider these 10 things first. G'day everyone, Dan and Matt here again from GI Energy. Today we're talking about the 10 things that you must consider before buying a solar battery in Australia. We talk about this stuff quite a lot. We've tried to summarize it into 10 main ones, and this really could make a huge difference to what you pay and what you get back from your solar and battery investment. It's a fantastic time to buy solar and battery in Australia due to, obviously, we've always had and we will always have great weather. We've got great subsidies on both solar panels and batteries now, and it's probably the best place in the world to get a positive return on investment. But there are some things there that you need to be careful of. So we'll get straight into the list. Number one, your load profile is everything. So if you haven't analyzed your load profile properly, then you're guessing.
Yeah.
What we mean by that is the person who you're talking to as a solar retailer and installer should be helping you work through the numbers and giving you feedback on your energy use before they suggest a system size.
Yeah, so obviously pretty straightforward. One is looking at how many kilowatt hours are used on your bill. Obviously the number of days in that cycle, so it's 20, 30, 40 kilowatt hours a day. That's obviously a great indication. And then a conversation around the proportion of that that's day and night is pretty simple to start with. And then going through the appliances that are there, when they're used, how they're used, seasonal, EVs, whatever else is in the mix. Because yeah, every house is different. Everyone uses power differently, and that'll definitely gauge the size of the solar array and the battery capacity as well.
Exactly. So step one, figure out your load profile. And that, as you said, that's with your power bill predominantly, but then just questions back and forth. And then step two, it has to be designed for your home, not a template. Again, something we talk about all the time, the cookie cutter approach, where everyone gets the same because it's easier for the company installing, but not right for the person actually having it installed for them. So if your solar system ends up looking exactly the same as your neighbors, something's probably gone wrong there. And one of the things in here in the office that we were talking about earlier today, with all the solar systems that were installed with staff here, none of them are the same. So that should speak volumes on this point.
Yeah, absolutely. I've done quite a few, actually doing a neighbour's system today as well as an installation. And I'm pretty sure with 5 neighbours on my street, none of the systems are identical.
Yeah.
And 2 of them have been in at a very similar time because of that variance in low profile and needs. And it's just a popular guy on your street saving everyone so much money. Was worried about the fuses on the street. There's just so much power may go through, that's all.
So part of that design is obviously also, number 3 on this list, backup power. So when you're designing the system, you should design it based on the load profile that has been identified. And then it should be, backup power should be one of the key considerations there.
Yeah, a lot of people just expect if you have a battery, the battery works if the grid goes out. It's definitely not the case. And that will vary depending on a single 3-phase home, size of the system, and also the need for potentially full backup or just essentials. But again, just a really important conversation to have about what you need for your home, because again, that might be very different to your neighbor or your friend or whoever else has a solar and battery system. Because it's not just a yes or no answer. It's what do you have and what do you need?
Yeah, exactly. And part of that design also, the next point we had there, number 4, was bigger is not always better. I mean, I wouldn't know personally, but for your battery, it's oversizing a battery can be as bad as undersizing it in many ways. And it comes back down to that cookie cutter approach again, where because of the battery subsidies, everyone was just getting these huge batteries installed, and a lot of people didn't need them. And what happens there is they don't get used properly. They don't get charged and discharged properly because they're not the correct size, and it's wasted funding from the government supporting that rebate, and it's wasted obviously homeowner money as well buying something they don't need. So bigger is not always better.
No, it obviously creates some inefficiencies there, potential strain on the battery as well.
Yeah.
And I guess it segues into the next point, which is the inverter capacity. Yeah, something we talk about all the time, and people are probably bored of hearing about it. But that will obviously complement that previous point on the battery capacity as to how much of that battery is actually going to be efficiently used. Because if you've got a very small inverter and a big battery, the charge and discharge just isn't going to work effectively, really, is it? And so inverter size controls the performance of the battery realistically.
100%. And we do talk about it all the time, but it is so crucial. You really need to have a detailed conversation about that, because if you end up with the wrong one and you need to change it further down the track, that's not an easy thing to do.
No, it's not. An electrician the other day that's doing some switchboard work on an installation we're doing ran his friend's system by me, which was a pretty low-end battery, and he said it's just not working. It is working, but it's only able to do what it can do, because I spoke to that person, and it's had a really small inverter and a massive battery, quite small solar array. So yeah, there's just a complete inefficiency in how that system is going to operate forever unless that inverter is changed. And obviously that's not a cheap exercise.
No, unfortunate, and it happens more often than you would think.
Yeah.
Next one on our list, number 6, was solar panels matter, probably more than people have given them credit for now. Obviously, your solar panels create the energy, your battery doesn't. So batteries are great, but without the solar panels producing the energy to go in them, yes, you can rely on the grid somewhat, and there's ways of charging your battery with cheap energy from the grid, which we won't get into, but you still need a good solar array, and you still need to choose the correct panel that suits you.
Yeah, I think panel manufacturers are reminding us at the moment, I don't forget about that part.
Yes.
They're obviously probably not getting the same sort of volume they're used to, because everything's just been completely focused on the battery, and you get to the end of a 30-minute conversation, or you go and see someone and you're walking out the door, you're like, oh yeah, panels. Because all the questions you just asked about the battery, and again, understandably because of the subsidy. And a lot of these installations are battery additions to existing solar arrays as well. But yeah, as you said, it's the panels that are creating the energy. We're always going to use more and more power, most likely, unless you're downsizing or something else is occurring. But for most homes, that's only going to increase. So that's your safety net in terms of filling up your battery every day of the year. So yes, there's other means to do it, which will likely have some caps and other things obviously in place moving forward. So you still need a very, very well-sized solar system with your panels to complement the battery.
Yeah, absolutely, especially if the power cuts.
Yes.
So those free charging windows and cheap charging windows from the grid don't work if the grid doesn't work. So if you don't have the correct solar array and you've lost power for however long, if you don't have the correct solar panels installed, that's going to really hurt then. That I guess also segues into the next point there, to think about your future needs. So when you're going through that design process, I mean, the obvious one here is electric vehicles. That's a really significant load that a lot of people are going to add, either in the form of a plug-in hybrid or a fully electric vehicle. But there's lots of other things to consider there as well.
Yeah, oh, for sure. I mean, there's way too many variables than you probably want to watch us talking about right now. The EV is the easy one because so many of our clients add an EV. I did as well, and it roughly adds somewhere to between 10 and 12 kilowatt hours a day for you.
Yeah.
Doesn't seem like a huge amount, but it's quite significant. That could be another, 50% more of your current usage if you're using 20 a day.
Yeah.
Maybe there's 2 vehicles, and maybe one of those can only be charged in the evening because it's at work or somewhere else. So more aircon, electrification of homes in different areas of the country. So moving away from gas for cooking, hot water, heating. A lot of people putting in more cooling.
Yeah.
So there's a whole range of different things that will add to that.
Yeah.
And systems will get smarter and more efficient. We're just going to have more of them. So definitely worth thinking about that now, because if you design the system correctly initially, there's a bit of headroom then. Or you've got a system that can potentially be tweaked or expanded so that increase in load in the home can be accounted for in some other manner.
Yeah, being able to future-proof it correctly so that if you're not sure you're going to buy an electric vehicle, but if you do, you need to be able to put a lot of charge into it in one go, for example, then you'd need to choose a battery or overall ecosystem that allows fast charging. So even if it's not oversizing the battery right now to cater for those needs, it's getting the correct battery or other hardware in place so that it can be adapted later.
Yeah, for sure.
The next one's a big one, and this is a little bit of a more difficult one to get across to people, that cheap isn't always better, and it often means buying twice. And in an industry where everything is so heavily cost focused, with a really low barrier to entry for solar companies, the market is flooded with very cheap quotes.
Yeah.
And it's not good.
No. And I guess this is the one where it's more, we're trying to do this as an education, not rather like call us, we need to do the job. It's more just to try and help
Yeah.
Because there's 3 jobs this month where we're taking out failed batteries. The oldest battery is 6 years old. All 3 aren't around anymore, or the installer's not around, the manufacturer's not helping, or it wasn't installed to their guidelines. Those 3 batteries should not be coming off after 5 and 6 years. Just no way. So now you've got even more product in the market from a greater pool of installers without that experience and that knowledge of how to make these systems last as long as they can from the installation side with the right cabling and other bits and pieces. So the support from those cheaper batteries needs to be even better than the quality ones, because it's twofold there. They're going to have more issues because of the product. They're going to have more issues because of the installation practice, because the two tend to go hand in hand. And also probably from the end user that didn't have that education initially on why it was cheaper. So it's pretty rough to think that that's what's going to happen, but it just has to, unfortunately. And to know we're taking out those 3 batteries just in 1 month. There's been many more in the past 9 months and into the future as well. And just the time taken to get them disassembled and removed from site is really time consuming
and
expensive. It's crazy how expensive it is. And I think there was a comment on a previous video that it didn't seem right. It genuinely was that much. Because there's no means of getting rid of them. And they're heavy. So it's do your due diligence on the equipment and the person putting it in, because if the price seems too good to be true, it probably is.
Which leads on to 9 and 10. 10 is the most important one. 9 first was the infrastructure matters just as much. Most people think. So cheap products is obviously a way of lowering the quotation cost. The other one is not looking at or not updating the existing site infrastructure correctly.
One of those batteries was actually due to an older switchboard as well, is what the manufacturer said.
Right.
So because nothing was updated, there are old sort of ceramic fuses there. So I don't know if I don't know the exact outcome, but if there was a power cut or a surge or something occurred, there was no protection in place.
Right.
So that battery's had it.
Right.
And then obviously the manufacturer can push back and say, well, nothing else met our guidelines or our standards for the installation, so there's no warranty.
Right.
And I think that's the really common one we're going to see, because we've seen it with inverters, you've seen it with panels. Now you're just introducing a far more problematic piece of equipment that's more expensive and incredibly difficult to service as well, because good labour won't work on cheap equipment because they know the risk there. Sadly, it's just what's going to happen. So it should not be an afterthought.
Definitely not. Updating things through your infrastructure, existing infrastructure is really important. We talk about it on a lot of videos. It's as simple as when you're first talking to whoever you're talking to get a quote, they should be asking you, at the very least, send through a photo of your switchboards. Obviously, they need to talk to you about where things are going in a lot of detail, but first up, let's have a look at what's inside your main switchboard and any subboards, so we can see what needs to be updated there. The last one is the company installing is way more important than the products they're installing. Can you explain why that is?
Well, anyone can access the equipment. It's not difficult to find whatever XYZ battery, inverter and panel. Everyone's got access to the same equipment through distributors and channels. The difference really is going to be the time taken to design, properly install, safely install, and support that installation long term. So all that costs money, and if there's not someone there to call afterwards, it's quite a difficult thing, I'd expect. And there's so many questions with batteries. There's so many little intricacies about how they operate, and it might not even be the battery. It could be the high voltage in the grid, and the network, something happening in the street, Wi-Fi, backup. There's so many layers to it, and it's such a high liability product generally compared to just an inverter and panels, which still have their own. But you're essentially providing backup power and a complete power station for somebody. And that is time consuming to take care of long term.
There's so many ways to save money, isn't there, throughout that process and cut corners that is really hard for a consumer to understand unless they educate themselves. So having a quote from two companies and one is more expensive and it looks like the same products, often people will go, well, it's the same. But as you quite rightly pointed out, there's cost savings through the design process, the installation process, and the after sales process. And you can save a lot of money through all of those, which have nothing to do with the products. Saving money is great if it doesn't negatively impact anybody, but all those things will negatively impact the client in the long term.
Yeah.
So it comes back down to doing your due diligence on the company before you worry too much about the products.
Yeah.
Making sure that they're asking you lots of questions during that initial conversation, identifying your load profile properly, designing the system for your home or your business, making sure that they're talking to you about backup power, basically just going through this list of things, making sure that it's all being addressed correctly. After that consultation and the phone or person's left your house, go and do your due diligence online and have a look at it. And then you'll soon find out who seems trustworthy. Make sure the company's been around for as long as they say they have. And that's a great place to start.
Yeah, absolutely.
As always, we're going to put a link in the description of this video to our battery guide, which I think a lot of people have found pretty helpful. If you've got comments, questions, please hit us up. And if you'd like to get in touch for a solar and battery proposal, we'd love to hear from you. And if not, hopefully you've got something from this video. Thank you.
Thanks.